so many people are looking around for advice. It's like, how can we be thought leaders right now? So whether it's like pulling together data that we're seeing from the landscape that we're in, and also doing historical data on COVID hasn't happened before, but huge downturns have happened before. What companies emerged out of that successfully, and what are the things they did?
Welcome to Show Me the Nuggets, where each week Joe chats with world-class entrepreneurs to find out the key principles, strategies, and processes that lie behind their outstanding achievements. Now, your host, the no bullshit serial entrepreneur, Joe Troyer.
Hey everybody, it's Joe Troyer, and welcome back to another episode of Show Me the Nuggets. I'm excited today to bring you guys a new guest, Jim Huffman. So Jim owns GrowthHIT. He's the CEO and founder, which is a growth marketing agency. He's also an author of the book, The Growth Marketer's Playbook, which I'm definitely going to be picking up after chatting with Jim earlier before we got kicked off, and is also a mentor at Techstars. So super excited to have Jim here with us today. Jim, how's it going?
Great, Joe. Pumped to be here. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, man. Excited to have you. We're going to be diving deep really on one topic. I'm going to talk about how you generated over $250,000 in 30 days during COVID. Obviously, we are coming out in South Florida, man. I feel like we're behind. We're still in phase one here in Palm Beach County. So excited to see what you did over there. But before we dive in, can we kind of get a quick catch up, 2 to 3 minutes, man, on what brought you to digital marketing as we know it?
Yeah, of course. I have a growth marketing agency, GrowthHIT, that specializes in conversion rate optimization. We've been doing this for like 4 years. But how I got here, like out of school, I was a finance major, right? I was a finance degree, and I was like, oh, that means you have to be either a consultant or an investment banker or accounting. And so I literally thought those were the three options. And I got into it, and it was kind of cool where I was doing mergers and acquisitions, which means I'm working in Excel. Maybe I'd be in a meeting. I would never talk unless the numbers were wrong, and it's my fault. But when I'd go in those meetings, you had lawyers, you had MBAs, but the most impressive person was the founder. And sometimes they didn't have a college degree, they didn't graduate high school, but they would just own the room. It was super inspiring. And I was like, I want to go work for that guy. And so it was at a time when startups were really kind of coming up. And there was one startup out in New York, and I was in Dallas at the time, called Urban Daddy, that was kind of like the daily candy for men that was just growing like crazy. And I went from finance to doing email newsletters and writing copy. And from that, I feel like if you can get lucky and be a part of a startup as like employee number 10 or 20, and then it goes to 300, you're going to learn, what people learn in 5 years in like 1 year, for better or worse, right? Through trial by fire. And so from that, I really got into e-commerce as we launched an e-commerce arm. And then when I moved out to New York, I got connected with some venture firms, and they wanted me to help with some companies that needed some kind of marketing or growth advice. And it just kind of snowballed, as the non-technical person at a couple other startups doing growth and marketing, to where I was doing some stuff on the side. And then I really had to make a decision like, wow, should I go all in and really try and turn this consulting thing into a potential agency? So that's kind of the roundabout way of getting to growth, that I feel like a lot of agency owners kind of stumble into it by accident. So I'm similar to that.
Okay, so that's cool. That's an impressive background. I liked what you said too about coming in at employee number 10 or 12 and then being along for the ride. That's super interesting. Were you able to do that in a company or two?
Yeah,
I can only imagine the expansion during that time and the pressure and it's either brilliant or it's awful, right? Depending on how you look at it.
Yeah, no, totally. And I accidentally did, I think, some smart things at the time where I was employee 27 and we grew to 200, and they didn't really know where to put me. They're just like, he'll work hard, so throw him on stuff. And so there'd be a miserable project come up. It's like, we've got to overhaul the CRM. Who wants to do that? And I'll be like, I guess I'll do it. And the thing that, if you take on that project that nobody wants to do, but it's a senior level, you can quickly accelerate your growth. And all of a sudden I'm working with the C-suite. The CEO needs to know what's going on. So I'm doing like late night meetings with the C-suite as I'm like this 25-year-old every night. And so just being a fly on the wall in those rooms was huge. And I think the other thing is you're an early employee at these companies, like embrace that you're in the like learn rather than earn phase. Embrace that you're the dumbest person in the room, but just try and like outwork everybody and just be a sponge, because that can pay off down the road by learning from that experience.
That's awesome, man. I love that story. And I think so many people are sold the entrepreneurship story and believe that they can get somewhere without some hustle and without some grit and determination. And by all means, I'm not a huge Gary Vee believer. I think working that way forever is a recipe for disaster. I think there has to be some type of balance and there's some type of scale to things. But I think that a lot of people these days are sold dreams that aren't really real. And I love what you said about having to really raise your hand, take on the projects that maybe aren't comfortable, but that are senior level projects that you were able to grab and put in extra time, but getting that time with the C-suite and getting noticed and building your relationships and putting in the time is awesome. I love that.
Oh, no, 100%, man. Like everyone's got to pay their dues to some degree, but if you can try and be strategic about that grunt work, then it could pay off.
That's awesome. So starting your agency, was the first name GrowthHIT?
What? Sorry, what?
Was your first name GrowthHIT of your agency?
It was. I was, as we're trying to jump on the growth marketing craze, I'm like, I've got to have growth in the name. And it's one of those horrible exercises of growth plus insert word. And there were so many horrible ones. I can't remember, but so that's how we settled on it.
Does that bother you some days? Like, it sounds like you're like, I'm not extremely obsessed with the name, or I would change it. Maybe I heard in your voice a little bit. I like the name. That's why I asked.
Yeah, no, I like it. If anything, I wish I would have done maybe one H. I'm not sure why I went with the double H's, but no, I'm good with it.
Gotcha. All right. So fast forward to today. Tell us about GrowthHIT. Like, who are you guys working with? What are you predominantly doing? Who do you guys specialize in? Tell us about GrowthHIT more.
Yeah, for sure. So we kind of started off as generalist growth marketers. And I think a lot of people that are in the agency world kind of get to this fork in the road where it's like, do I try and be everything to everybody, or do I really niche down? And that's when we started to see like where we're good and where we're bad and where we're really great. And we are kind of obsessed with conversion rate optimization. So many people are spending so much time and money on sending that expensive traffic to the website, but then what's the plan after that? And so the happiest clients are the ones where we're really starting to show ROI on our on-site experiments. And so we went all in on CRO. Like, we still do paid ads on social, we do retention marketing with email, but that's it in addition to CRO. CRO is the core of it. And so we work really well with companies that, they're getting a significant amount of traffic, so we can run A/B tests with significant data. We're doing really well with clients that are on Shopify, that are in e-commerce, that have a very clear average order value and lifetime value. And we work quite a bit, like, because we mentor with Techstars. Usually it's high growth startups after they've done maybe an A or B round of funding, because they've proven traction. They've got enough money in the bank to really hit that growth level. So we're able to pay for ourselves and then some. So just in the past year and a half, kind of making that, it was kind of a tough decision, or not tough, just a nervous decision for me, because it means you're saying no to things, but to really go all in on conversion rate optimization. And it is hands down the best thing we've done.
That's awesome. So you said e-com. Do you play in other fields as well, or is e-com kind of your space? And is there any more specialty within that?
Yeah, we basically, anytime we can do a transaction on the site, so it's e-commerce, especially Shopify, we love, lead generation sites, and then software as a service sites where they're getting enough traffic, especially when there's the conversion with the pricing page. Those are the three we really like. The other thing that's actually just in the past 4 months that's been really fun is online education, just because the demand has gone up so much. All these companies that were like doing outbound are quickly focused on inbound because they're getting so much traffic. So they care about on-site conversion. But those are the ones where we really play.
Yeah, man, that's really interesting. Cool. So let's say an agency is listening or a marketer is listening right now. What are like the top 2 or 3 kind of playbook strategies or go-to strategies that you guys implement that are kind of pretty much kind of canned wins every time? What's the go-to strategies for you guys? Like, I don't have a CRO agency, right? I have a pay-per-click agency, I have an SEO agency. If I wanted to start using CRO in my own agency, what are the kind of plays I would turn to immediately? Where would you tell me, like, Joe, focus on this, like, stay away from this? Like, what advice would you give?
Yeah, I'll put it into kind of 2 buckets. The first thing that I would absolutely do, like I think most companies are fairly good at quantitative analysis. And all that means is they know how much traffic they're getting. They know the add to cart percentage. They know the conversion rate. They know that. They know what's happening on their website. What they don't know is why, doing the qualitative, like doing the heat maps, doing the session recordings, doing the voice of customer surveying. And this stuff, by the way, is super boring. Like literally watching a screen recording, like you fall asleep. But the thing is, that's where the gold is. That's like where the insight is, where you can truly understand those 3 to 7 objections that people actually have. Because once you know that, that transforms a whole growth strategy. So right away, we're like, okay, let's start running that research because that drives our entire strategy. So that's the first thing, is doing that. And by the way, like almost everybody's ignoring that, which is good for us, but it's also that's where the insights are. The second thing is, as you're looking where you can have the biggest impact, okay, what pages get the most traffic? What is the traffic source? Is it paid traffic? Is it free traffic? Really trying to quantify the ROI on what you're actually doing. So we're usually building an ROI model because we want to show that we can pay for ourselves. And so that's something that we're doing. And like even just best practices for a landing page. So Optimizely, which is a testing tool, had this cool study of, they analyzed like 2,000 plus landing pages, and they had a formula of, here are the 5 things to do to make a landing page that converts. One is like, your headline should not say what your top feature is. It should be second person, use the word you, and benefit focus. You've got to have social proof. Your call to action should be unique. Your copy below the headline, that's where you can talk about your feature, but use language of your customer. And then I think the 5th is an actual image or video that aligns with the aspiration of your persona. So for us out of the gate, it's doing the research and really looking at their key landing pages if it aligns with some of those best practices.
Yeah, that's great stuff on the landing pages. So quickly to recap, I guess, objections, figuring out those using heat maps, some type of screen recording software, figuring out the top 3 to 7. To then really nailing the ROI, and I love that, and figuring out what that is worth, right? That test, if you can move the needle, getting really clear on that, I think is uber important, and then the landing page tips. So I guess a couple of follow-up questions based upon that. What's your goal for a client ROI? Like when you take on a client, do you have very specific, right, goals coming out the other side that kind of help you understand, is this the right fit? Is this not the right fit? In talking with literally tens of thousands of agencies, it's very interesting to see kind of the filters that they have and the goals that they have, and it seems like the ones that really grow and scale and are uber clear on their outcomes are the ones that really perform well in the marketplace.
Yeah, no, you're 100% right, because if you don't have those things decided up front, your retention is not going to be good on those clients. And I've learned that the hard way for sure. So for us, right out of the gate, we ask for Google Analytics read-only access, because we're like, okay, how much traffic do they have? What is their average order value? What's their lifetime value? And we're running a model. If we can increase conversion by X percentage, how much additional revenue do we have? Because if that significantly pays for our retainer and then some, then we're really excited. But if it's like break even, or we have to really do a lot to even make it ROI positive, we probably won't want to move forward, just because we want to take on clients that we just kind of in the back of our mind, we're like, we know we're going to nail this. The second thing I'm doing is, can we run enough experiments to have a significant win to get that? So for us, in 90 days, that's our time frame where we're trying to run an experiment per week. So that's 12 and a quarter. And the goal is if we can get 30% of those to win, of significance, we're going to pay for ourselves. Because we don't really tell the client this, but like within 90 days, we basically want to pay for ourselves for almost a year. So it's just a no-brainer to work for us. And then the other thing we're doing, like even before we launch, we want to have access to all the tech stack and things set up so we can, on week one, get a simple experiment going. Because when we don't do that and things get stalled, it takes a week, 2 weeks to get live. That does not work out well. So those are some of the things that we're looking at whenever we're trying to like make sure we have a good project going.
All right. So you got some really good nuggets in there that I want to make sure to. So I want to have a follow-up on setting expectations. How do you set expectations with a client, right? So you said like your goal internally is to pay for yourself in 3 months. How do you then properly set the expectations with the client, right? Like,
yeah.
How do you give yourself enough room, or kind of what's your thought? How do you set that expectation knowing that your goal is, right, I'm gonna break even or pay for myself for the year in the first 3 months, so it's an easy win. How do you then correlate that to make sure that you don't oversell yourself, undersell yourself, and the client buys into the long term, not just the short term, right? You guys knocking it out of the park for the first 3 months and then, yeah, thanks, Jim, see you later.
Right. Those are such good questions. So like the first thing is like sometimes we have to sell them on the impact of CRO, right? So it's like that's where we need to do the model. It's like, hey, if we increase things by 20, 30, 40%, here's the additional revenue you'll have. And ideally that will pay for ourselves. So that sells the dream. But you're right. Now we've got to manage expectations because they're like, oh, where's that extra 50K a month you promised? Then we start showing case studies. And our case studies, it's not like greatest hit, greatest hit, greatest hit. It's like, okay, here's the insight we learned from the research. Here's a test we ran that failed. But by the way, then we learned this that led to this experiment, and this one worked. And the whole goal is to show how if it's not about winning tests, I mean, it is about winning tests, but it's about testing velocity. If we're running a test each week that compounds, we're going to get to that result. And that's really trying to reiterate a win rate of like 15 to 30%. Because a lot of times people don't know that. They just assume every test you're going to do is going to win, and it's the complete opposite. But to also answer your question, it's like, okay, that's great. You've got them excited about it. You're hopefully setting expectations for, not every test is going to win. But what about in 3 months when you've delivered, you've increased it by 40%? How do you keep them for the long haul? For us, that's where the research component comes in, because I feel like at any agency owner, there's two categories you're going to be put in by a client. One is, are you a strategic thought leader they go to for advice, or are you an order taker where they think they know everything and they're just telling you what to do? Because the second you're the order taker, it's really hard to get out of that hole. And I've been in that hole before. So if you own the data and the research and the insights, that makes you someone they go to for advice and you can be with for the long haul. That's why everything we do, we try and anchor in research, because one, it makes our experiments easier to come with ideas, and two, it puts us in that strategic thought leader category.
Yeah, I love that. That makes perfect sense. I was concerned when you said that you're going to pay for yourself in the first 90 days, that like, that's great, but like such a big win, right? It's like, why not just like, how do they see the value in moving forward? Like, thanks for the easy win, Jim. See you later. We'll hit up next year, and you can do the same thing for us. When I see people selling SEO, right? You got short-term problems to get a win, but in 90 days I can deliver a win that can show the client that I'm the right vendor. And that's always the problem with SEO. Is just, do I have the right guy, or am I getting kind of pulled over the barrel yet again? And so I do a 12-month contract that auto renews every year, but it's a 90-day out. So they got 90 days to test me, and I'm going to hit KPIs that are going to pay for myself in the 90 days, but also keep showing them the ramp, right? And keep showing them the future. And so I can spend all of my marketing budget, every dollar, right? And put as much time and cost and potential in that campaign in the first 90 days, which is the hardest, right? And I know with certainty that 75 to 80% of the time, we're going to retain that client, right? Yeah. And so I don't care spending every dollar and making sure that we get wins in the first 90 days, right? That are going to continue to propel us, for the rest of the year. So,
but I'm really impressed you have the 90-day out. We make them commit to 3 months and then a 30-day out. but we're trying to push ourselves to be more aggressive, honestly, to get to that level, because I think that's really a good way to go. The thing that we've seen work extremely well with retention is when we can get them to do another service with us. So if we can run their email automation or newsletters or do social ads, that is very helpful with retention. We're not even looking to make necessarily a big margin on that. We'll even break even, just because it's so good for the lifetime value.
Yeah, I mean, you get so ingrained in their business too, right? By handling more than one thing, that it's harder to turn you off because you got your hands wrapped around more, I think. And you can show a bigger lifetime value. Exactly. You can start to stack those things. That's awesome.
Yeah.
So, man, I've been holding back, trying to get the complete story and get caught up. But man, I wanna know all about this headline, man. The 250K in 1 month from COVID, and how you were able to really, rally during COVID. I'm excited to break down a little bit. I got to know, man, how'd you do it?
Yeah, well, yeah. So like, given like the context, like we were, I think like a lot of people, super excited about 2020. It's like, oh, the year, it's going to be a great year. We're going to hit all of our goals. And we were seeing like our pipeline was looking pretty good. We were finally closing deals that were the right deals, the right clients, the right price. Whereas most people starting out, you're just trying to take whatever. But we were finally getting selective. And so we're literally about to make 2 hires, and then all of a sudden, COVID hits, and it hits quite significantly with us. As I said, some of our clients raise a round of funding, so right away their cash flow is a little fragile. So COVID hits, and it just wipes them out. So we lose half of our business. We're at 7 figures. We lose half of our business in 48 hours, and I'm just like, wow, that hurts. That's like 2 years of work in your pipeline to make that happen, and so. And not only that, but our pipeline just completely dried up. So many clients that weren't essential products just evaporated. So we're, trying to figure out what to do. And it's interesting because I don't know about you, but most ways when you think about growth, you're like, I want repeatable and scalable. I need things for the long haul. And I completely flipped that script. I'm like, no, I care about non-scalable and immediate. I don't care if it's repeatable. Let's just kind of fill the pipeline. And so one thing, I think a lot of people, whenever you have a problem or an issue, you kind of like think you have to take it all on by yourself. And I'm like, you know what? I'm not smart enough for that. I should probably find the smartest people I know. I'm just going to lay out my situation, lay out a strategy, and get their feedback. And so I did that. I have like an executive coach. I have kind of like a marketing mentor who's like a high up at a publicly traded company, and like a kind of a founder mentor. He's actually younger than me, but he's been in the game longer, and I get really good advice from him. So I just laid out, okay, here's the situation. Here's what I'm thinking. And we kind of came up with a plan. And so we decided so many people are looking around for advice. It's like, how can we be thought leaders right now? So whether it's like pulling together data that we're seeing from the landscape that we're in, and also doing historical data on COVID hasn't happened before, but huge downturns have happened before. What companies emerged out of that successfully, and what are the things they did? So we started just talking about this. We started doing webinars. We started doing virtual lunch and learns. We have an email list. It's not huge, but we were just hitting it up with just content, trying to add value. And by doing that, we slowly started to get the conversation going. The other thing that we did, we got very aggressive with account-based marketing, meaning the companies and industries that were actually impacted positively by COVID. We started doing pre-ads to them and doing essentially email outreach to them. So, and we started spending more on ads. So those 3 things started to get like that pipeline moving again. And we got lucky that the online education space started to prove very well for us. And same with some e-commerce companies and food delivery companies where you could kind of position them as essential right now. But yeah, those were kind of the 3 ways we tried to right the ship, and we're able to close some deals because our average retainer, is between 7,500, 10 grand a month. So if you close 3 to 5 companies with a small business like us, that's significant.
It's huge, 100%. Yeah, that makes perfect sense. That's awesome, man. Congratulations, and way to rewrite the book, so to speak, right? Like completely 180 turn.
Well, I'm still paranoid, so we'll see, man. Every morning you wake up, it's like, what's going on? So we'll see.
Cool, man. Let's transition a little bit. Tell us about the book, The Growth Marketer's Playbook. How this all kind of come together. Why'd you write this, or why'd you write it?
Yeah. So I was living in New York at the time, and I was teaching at General Assembly. It's a continuing education for professionals. It's just a very basic digital marketing class. And then I was doing some kind of mentoring and small talks with tech stars and some other venture capital firms. And I had all this content. I had all these slides. I'm like, well, I should do something with this. And what was nice about doing so many classes, I was able to really present it to people, get their feedback on what resonated, what helped, what didn't help, what people already knew, or things that kind of opened their eyes. And after going through that exercise, I was like, I'd love to just package this up to kind of make it, a way to get it out to people a little bit more scalable, a little bit more efficiently. So I was able to compile all of it into a book, into a workshop, and put it out there. And the other fun part was, trying to market a marketing book, because it's like, if you're any good at marketing, you should probably back it up and market the book. So I was like, okay, crap, I need to figure out how to do that. So that was a fun exercise in itself. We did get to #1 on Amazon for 72 hours and beat Seth Godin until he started marketing, and then he just zoomed right past us. But I have a screenshot to prove it. But yeah, he's a little bit better at that than me.
That's awesome. And that's like when we did the original launch of the podcast, we beat out Gary Vee for like 2 days. Right?
That's awesome.
I'm beating Gary Vee. And then and then I just just tanked. But for a moment there, man, on top of the world. And
I hope you have a screenshot of that. That's priceless. Yeah,
I do for sure. And it really helped actually get us a lot of momentum because we did a whole campaign that we're beating Gary Vee, a whole marketing campaign, and it was great. And we got everybody that even knew of me and or one of my companies was on the bandwagon, cheering and sharing and writing a review, and so it was great. It worked really well, even though it didn't last very long.
Yeah. Oh, I should have made a campaign out of it. That's a smart move.
Yeah, so we were running ads all over the place, retargeting and kind of warm audiences that knew me and liked similar marketing things, right? So it worked well.
That's cool. That's awesome.
So we just had on the podcast Walker Diebel, who's the author of a book called Buy Then Build, on the show, and really similar background as you, honestly, in finance. And kind of his journey, so to speak. And he made a great case for kind of what he calls the acquisition entrepreneur, and really buying a business from scratch and talking about why that's a better use case than starting from zero and trying to get to one, as Peter Thiel would say. So I'm curious, just similar background, right? But obviously doing very different things. What's your take on that, Jim?
Yeah, I bought that book a few years ago. My uncle actually knows him and recommended it. The title alone just kind of threw me off guard. I was like, oh my God, I love that title. And then I follow Andrew Wilkinson of Tiny Capital, who's trying to be like the Berkshire Hathaway of the internet. And then Ryan Culp, who does Fork Equity, does a similar model. And I'm kind of mildly obsessed with it because startups fail for a lot of reasons. One of it is there's some really smart people behind startups, but they have to take on a skill set that is so foreign to them of going from 0 to 1, where they have to wear so many hats, do customer interviews, and understand it. It's just like you're setting yourself up to fail. If you can get past that initial hurdle and take on something with traction, then you can focus on what you're good at, if that's product development, sales, or marketing. So I absolutely love that idea if you can find an acquisition target that is lacking where your strength is, or if you have a proven way to scale it. Because it's something we've been thinking about. It's like, okay, if there's a good product where we could bolt on what we do, or if they're getting great organic traffic but have really bad CRO, we would love to do that. So it's something that we as an agency are actually looking to invest in with that same model, because we've seen so many smart people do startups that have failed. I do think it is something that's kind of micro private equity that's going to be really, really popular.
Yep, that's awesome. Cool. So very similar thought process as me as well. I've been very, very obsessed with it for about almost 18 months now, I think. Super obsessed with the book, and then ran into Walker in person and got to chat, and then ended up having him on the podcast. So I'm curious then, kind of similar train of thought, but different, just what your thought is on expenses to revenue or ETR. And what I mean is looking at, if you look at your cash flow statement, what your top expenses are, and trying to figure out, how do you capitalize on those better? How do you turn those from expense centers, so to speak, into profit centers?
Yeah, so kind of like the way I think about it is, like as an agency, like you can have good margins if you have good systems and you're running it the right way. And it's like, okay, if you have those good margins, what are you doing with that capital? Are you investing in people and marketing your agency, or can you reinvest that into, an initiative, building something or buying something? So one thing we're trying to do is we have the kind of Hit Lab Ventures where, we have this kind of little nest egg where we would like to be in a very offensive position to go out and acquire things. But the thing we're trying to understand is, what industries, what sectors, what is the profile, what is the cost? And so that's something we're going through. We kind of call it the 10-year test, where what is a tool or industry that we will actually be paying for like the next 10 years. So very obvious examples are like Slack, Zoom, online education, podcast type of things. Like we're very, very bullish on. And so for us, we're trying to play that game of dipping our toes in the waters and things that we're very, very excited about.
Yeah, man, that's awesome. Yeah, we're, I feel like that one's a little easier to tackle, at least for us internally, than buying a business. And I've bought and flipped and sold and bought and held companies. I love the idea. I feel like it's a lot harder to execute though than you would like it to be. Right, finding a loan is like a needle in a haystack, right? The right opportunity. So I feel like I get really excited about it, but the project doesn't really move because it takes a lot to find the right project. So we've been spending a lot of energy instead on kind of the expenses to revenue and taking all the things that we, all the software applications and kind of all the high expense items in our agency and turning those into profit centers instead. And that's been really cool to see.
Yeah, that's awesome.
So let's with your book, what's the goal of your book? Is that a lead generator for the agency at the end of the day? What was your thought going into that?
Yeah, so here's our big kind of secret sauce to sales that we've realized. If we can get on a call with someone who has already viewed us as a thought leader, meaning they like came to one of our talks, they watched one of our webinars, then the close rate goes up significantly higher, and it's usually not competitive. And so so really the goal of the book was kind of lead generation. So what's interesting is I probably sold the most on Amazon, but I made significantly more on Gumroad. Because you could also package it with a course and a video and whatnot. And I think it's Nathan Barry has a really good book called Authority, where he kind of lays out the pricing model for that. But yeah, it's a long-winded answer to your question, but lead generation and thought leadership was the goal.
So that's awesome. I'm curious then, was your goal to generate a lot of new leads with the book, or to turn existing lead flow right into thinking that you're a thought leader, just positioning wise with the book? Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, definitely does. It was definitely to get new leads because nobody knows about me or GrowthHIT. So it's very top of the funnel, just trying to make noise like, hey, we exist. We know our stuff. Here you go. And it's so funny too, because writing a book, I don't know, just by saying you wrote a book and you can say it's the bestseller, even though it was literally a bestseller for like 48 hours, it has this like stamp of social proof that has opened doors where I think myself and my team has done much cooler and better things, but it's just like, I don't know, it's something that people can understand and associate with.
It's so funny that you say that, because I feel like in our little entrepreneur marketing bubble, so to speak, I feel like it's so played out, right?
Yeah.
Being a best-selling author. But that doesn't mean like just because that's how we feel or that's how a lot of people feel doesn't mean that that's how our prospects, people that we're going after, really feel. And I feel like a lot of times we make assumptions that that's just like that's how everybody else feels as well.
Yeah. But yeah, no, that's a great point because I couldn't agree more because I was like, do I even do this on Amazon? Do I want to do that hassle? But yeah, I totally agree.
So, what are some other things that you've done, Jim, that you feel like have done a good job of positioning yourself as a thought leader? Obviously, the book is a major one.
Yeah, I think for me, it's like trying to lean on the side of like creating more than you consume and adding value without worrying about getting anything in return. Like because I taught at General Assembly in New York for like 3 years. I'm in Seattle now, and then I kept teaching, and then I started teaching through the ANA, and then I'll do like a free webinar with anybody. And what's funny is like a lot of times you won't see the immediate ROI from it, but like 3 months, 6 months, even like as COVID was happening, so I was like, oh hey, I was at a webinar you did a year and a half ago. Want to see if we could potentially work with you, and we ended up closing them. I'm like, wow, how lucky is that? And so I think just the more you are like genuine and authentic and just put yourself out there and try and help and add value. For me, is teaching. I think that's the best thing, and it just helps you sharpen your saw to stay sharp. Because if you're talking in front of a room, supposedly an expert, you can get a million different questions. It makes you want to be sharp, so you don't look like a fool.
100%.
Yeah.
Nobody wants to look like a fool.
Yeah.
So, what's next? What's on the vision board? What's on the path? Where are you going? What's the next chapter, so to speak?
Yeah, so like COVID for us like really exposed some things because like we were doing fairly well, so we got comfortable. I wouldn't say lazy, but we got comfortable where you didn't have to be as strategic and focus on diversifying channels, repeatable, scalable tactics. And so it was the ultimate stress test because all of a sudden we couldn't do offline speaking, pipeline dried up. We had to find a new way to acquire clients. So it made us get our sales strategy down, our outreach strategy down, how are we doing content on a repeatable basis. And so now that we have this machine going, like I'm extremely energized by it, but it's just one portion, right? The sales side. The thing that we're doing is really trying to position ourselves in the CRO space as thought leaders. So we've launched this site called Funnel Teardowns, where it's a free content site where all we're trying to do is any startup or company that just raised a lot of money that is hitting hypergrowth, we're essentially reverse engineering their funnel and be like, hey, here's everything they're doing from the onboarding to activation to their email strategy, their ad strategy, and just trying to hand it over. And the goal there is kind of what I said before, like we want to be positioned as thought leaders. And this is a way for us to do it at scale where we don't have to go do one-off talks, and hopefully it doesn't mean we have to travel because that's not happening anytime soon. So for us, it's really investing in that as we're looking to build the agency, because we also finally got all the boring stuff, the SOPs, the operations in place to prepare for scale, and it took us much longer than we wanted, but we're able to bring on people and train them up to work with us.
That's awesome. So my audience would kill me if I didn't ask what's working now in terms of outbound sales. I get a ton of outbound sales questions, tips, tricks, and get a lot of questions around that. So I gotta ask.
Yeah, I'd say it's twofold. One is we will do free work if we have qualified the client to be like, wow, this is the sweet spot. If we close them, we know this will work. And that free work could be in the form of doing a free conversion audit. It could be a free model, but we only present those in person, or not in person, but over like Zoom. So that's one thing. Another thing, if you have enough data to give market insights and intelligence, that can be really good, but it kind of sums up to giving free content, doing free work. And also what's nice is it's a good way for them to really see how you work, because if you have a sharp team that can really execute, then it plays in your favor. But it's definitely a numbers game as we're doing outreach, because we're kind of scraping a few different lead generation tools. We're then, pulling all the information so we have it right. We're using Mailshake to do outbound, and we're trying, like, I don't know. We're very like short and concise with our emails, and we're like, if you don't want this, opt out. We'll stop emailing you. But like, do you want this? We'll do it for free. Let us know. So trying to be just very black and white, not too cutesy with our stuff. But yeah, that's kind of what we're doing on the lead side. We're also testing a lot of, kind of warming them up with ads on LinkedIn and on social. So hopefully before they see the email, they've seen an ad where they're somewhat aware of GrowthHIT.
Gotcha. So to break that down, really going after the right audience. Obviously, you're doing cold email to the right audience that you know is qualified, and really short email, making an offer that hopefully they can't refuse. And if they can, just make it easy for them to bump out.
100%. And I think for us, it's about how much traffic they have. So you can usually get their Alexa rank and kind of, there's a calculator to figure out if they have enough traffic. And so for us, that's a big tell. I bet for SEO, it's probably easier. You can just grab the URL and pump it into SEM Rush or something and get some good insights.
Yeah, for sure. Much easier on that. Cool, man. So I want to wrap it up. Instead of asking you to recommend 3 books, we do something a little different here on Show Me the Nuggets. I feel like everybody does that. Every podcast is like, what's your top 3 books, Jim? So we ask, as you look at your business today, right, and what it looks like today, what book do you think has made the biggest impact on the way that you do business or the current representation of your business, and why?
Yeah, I think the one that is like so timely for right now. So I'd say anyone listening, like where I'm at is, most agencies kind of start off as a glorified freelancer that maybe has some virtual assistants helping them or whatever. Like I would call myself a CEO, but it was a lie. I was doing all the work and I'd have some people helping me. And then eventually you can fire yourself, hopefully, where, whether you're hiring below you or you're hiring senior people, to where you can start working on the business rather than in the business. And that's where we've finally gotten to, where I'm able to have people significantly smarter than me, start executing. And so I've been talking to my executive coach on like, how do I do this the right way? And so he's very big on the book Scaling Up. And so one thing we've been working on is the strategy portion of that book. I wouldn't even call that a book. It is a workbook where you have to get into those exercises, but it asks you some really hard questions that you don't know the answer to, that you feel like you need to know the answer to help run a real business. So anyone that's graduating from being this freelancer to actually a business owner, and you like frameworks, that book has helped me quite a bit.
Awesome, man. That's a great recommendation. Definitely would highly recommend. And I love the explanation that you gave as well, right? Why is it important, and why now in your journey or the phase of business that you're in? And it's really the reason why I like asking the question the way that I do, is because everybody's at a different place in their business. So seeing the reflection of like, this is what's important at this stage is cool, and a kind of a different point of view than I think most people ask that question.
Yeah, so, I love how you asked that, because the right book at the right time of life is just transformative, I'm sure like a lot of people, I think I read the 4-Hour Work Week in my 20s. I was like, yep, that's it. That's what I want to do.
Yep, done, retired, it's over. I'm living that life.
Yeah, exactly.
So awesome. So Jim, man, I just want to say thanks for coming on. It's been awesome getting to know you. We'll make sure to link you up in the show notes below. We'll make sure to link up GrowthHIT. We'll make sure to link up your book as well, the Growth Marketers Playbook. The new funnel teardowns website we'll stick in there. And then lastly, Jim, where are you the most active on social media if somebody wants to reach out and talk to you guys about doing some business?
Yeah, for sure. I'm on Twitter, just Jim W. Huffman on Twitter. And then my email is just jim@growthhit.com. So I'm around.
Awesome, man. Thanks so much for coming on. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks, Joe. Appreciate it.
See you, everybody.